Illinois already has among the highest property taxes in the country. We're right behind New Jersey, but it's getting close. We might be the highest soon, if not already. But Chicago, if Mayor Brandon Johnson gets his way, you're going to be paying a higher property tax. Welcome in Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Chicago, of course, large economic engine for the state. A lot of people live there. It dominates Illinois' politics. There's no question about it. But the city has a whole host of financial issues. They're looking at $1 billion of debt. Their pension issues are a mess. You've also got the Chicago Public Schools, which has a lot of money going to it. But Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson yesterday, he laid out his plan. He talked about investing in communities, investing in housing, investing in education, investing millions more for youth summer employment opportunities, trying to fill out his campaign promise of hiring more detectives for Chicago police, and a host of other things. But a campaign promise that he made apparently was not raising property taxes. Well, yesterday, after laying out that he has worked to find efficiencies and savings, he had no other choice but to ask for a property tax increase.
That is why this budget currently includes a property tax increase of $300 million to fund and keep our commitment to fund not just our pension contributions, but to fund the future of our city. This is tough. It is. It is something that I grappled with for weeks and weeks. We didn't make this decision lightly. I directed my budget team to look at all the options at closing this budget gap. And when it came down to either mass layoffs, curbing vital city services, or an increase in property taxes, I would certainly much rather tax the rich. But I did have to make the choice to increase our property taxes. And I understand that today I'm asking families to lean in yet again and do a little bit more in order to make sure that their neighbors are not laid off and to make sure that we don't have to cut vital city services. I know that across the city, working families make tough decisions every day. God knows that I do. And whether it's the cost of childcare, paying utilities, certainly I know the challenge of paying utilities. And even going grocery shopping and buying food for our families, I know adding to those tough choices is not easy. But this was the best option that I have at this time.
Didn't he, like during the campaign, wasn't there a whole thing about how he had some late bills to the city, like utility bills or something to that effect? Interesting. So yeah, he's increasing property taxes in his proposed budget that starts January 1st. Chicago spends about $18 billion plus a year. At least that's what they're going to spend in the current fiscal year. And the next fiscal year begins January 1st. So he laid out all these priorities. He talked about how he's finding more revenue in different places, and he's pushing a back against any kind of mass layoffs. Well, Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday at an unrelated event was asked about this proposed property tax increase.
We're doing a lot better than we've ever done before, putting more resources into schools. And what does that do? It allows local governments to at least abate the pressure to increase property taxes. Many have not taken us up on that, which is just disturbing to me. I know that there's a need for more funding, that people feel like, there isn't ever enough, but property taxes are already too high. And so the more that attention can be given, and that is by local school boards, including the one in Chicago, but local school board when it is fully convened and elected. But across the state of Illinois, it's local school boards that impose property taxes related to schools. And honestly, they've received more money than ever before from us. I think that they should take that seriously and try to abate the increases in property taxes.
So he has, in budgets, increased the amount of dollars going to school districts in particular, which drives your property tax bill. You look at your property tax bill, and there it is. I mean, the school district in your area, it takes a lot of your dollars. But the governor says, hey, we've been increasing money to local school districts, and more than $2 billion over the past few years have been given to local schools, increase of $2+ billion. But you really haven't seen a decrease in the property taxes. And the governor's just highlighting that. There's really been no abatement, and he's disturbed that local governments haven't been taking him up on that. But that's how it is here in the state of Illinois. Property taxes driven primarily by local school districts. Those local school districts are the ones that are making the decision to increase property taxes for schools, for buildings, for salaries, and so on. But the governor was asked again about the idea of increasing property taxes in the city of Chicago.
Well, the city's in a little bit different position, but property taxes are too high for everybody. I mean, if you're asking me that question, I think that's an easy one for everybody. And I understand, though, that there is stress in the city budget. They've got to figure out. I have talked about the need for efficiencies, the need to make sure that you're not, haven't put your ARPA dollars entirely into your operating budget. And I don't know what the percentage is for the city rather, but it's a reasonably high percentage. And so that obviously causes problems. We tried not to do that at the state level. We also have, tight budgets, and, we'll continue to. But I would like to see some recognition that property taxes already are a burden.
So obviously, Mayor Johnson, in announcing a new property tax increase proposal, recognized people are having a hard time paying their bills, but he also said he's doing more to try to draw up more revenue, not just through this property tax increase, but also by enforcement and making sure that corporations, he says, pay their bills.
In total, this budget includes over $400 million in additional revenue, including enhancements to our existing revenue streams. And through the leadership of the city's corporation council, we are cracking down on these bad actors and corporations that owe the city money.
It wasn't the only time he talked about corporations. One of the reasons he said in his speech that he's pushing for a property tax increase is because a couple of other avenues to increase taxes have failed. You had the progressive income tax that was on the statewide ballot in 2020. That failed. Voters did not approve that measure. That would have changed Illinois' flat income tax to a progressive income tax. Mayor Johnson said it was the ultra-rich and corporations that put out a campaign against that, and that's why it failed. He also complained about the Bring Chicago Home tax increase that was on the ballot recently in Chicago. That failed. Voters did not approve that. What that would have done, it was it increased a progressive tax on the sale of real estate and would have gone to help fund homelessness. Again, voters rejected that tax increase. So he says the only reason he is increasing property taxes in his proposed budget is because he had nowhere else to go. He was asked after the city council hearing yesterday about his campaign promise to not raise property taxes.
What would you say to those who voted for you and now you are going to be raising those property taxes when I know initially you said that you would not during your campaign?
Well, look, as I've always said, I hold true to my values, and negotiating the details of my values is something I've always been open to. But first and foremost, I want people to be very clear that what this budget does, what I've done since I've been in office, it invests in young people. It invests in mental health and behavioral health. It invests in community safety. It invests in building more affordable homes. These investments are clear. We're not going backwards to a time in which neighborhoods that have been, disinvested in and ignored over decades, we're not going back to that time. And look, as painful as this process has been, I know that the people of Chicago don't want us to lose the vital services that we rely upon. And with the options that were in front of me, and this is, the reality of the options that are in front of me. We can cut and lay off our neighbors. We can find, revenue streams. But we have to make sure that we're paying our obligations as well. And, this is the beginning of an open process that I'm looking forward to engaging with all of our city council members and the community at large.
So again, looks like at least when it comes to what Johnson's looking for, he's looking to increase property taxes. The budget starts January 1st. Expect budget hearings sometime in November, but there were a couple of alder people yesterday who said, we don't have the budget books yet. And since we delayed this speech 2 weeks, can we delay the budget hearings? So we'll see what happens with the city of Chicago. Again, they spend $18 billion just in the city, looking for a $300 million property tax increase with $1 billion deficit. We'll see how that goes and if they're going to be able to tolerate it financially. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily.